If you're looking for a laptop for Autodesk, you're in the right place. In this video, we're going to be looking at different laptops from different price ranges. We're going to be talking about what makes up a good laptop for Autodesk, and I have experience with 80% of these laptops, so we're going to get real benchmark tests. Let's get into it.
Let's get rocking.
If you're new to the channel, my name is Benji Kaiser. This is where you're going to find the best tech and tools for creative professionals. If you're curious about the exact pricing or availability of any of these laptops, as we're heading through the video, you can head down into the description below and click one of those links. Now, if you do make a purchase through that link, I will get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. And that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. So what can you expect out of this video? We talked lightly about a few things, but let's dive deeper. First and foremost, like I said, I've personally tested 80% of these laptops, which will give us benchmark scores in Geekbench 5, Cinebench R20, Autodesk 3ds Max, and Autodesk Maya. We're going to take a look at thermal temperatures, and of course, like I said, the affiliate links are in the description below. But something I want to ask you is, what laptop are you considering? Definitely comment below. We'll talk about that, see if that's a good fit for Autodesk. All right, moving forward, let's dive right into things. Let's talk about integrated versus dedicated GPU. So when considering a laptop for Autodesk, I would personally not choose a laptop without a dedicated GPU. And we'll talk about more why when we see the benchmark tests later in the video. But just to kick things off, an integrated GPU is going to be something like the Iris Plus G7, the AMD Radeon 7 graphics, the Intel Ultra HD graphics. These are graphics that are built into the CPU. So it's doing graphics processing within the processor. Versus a dedicated GPU, something like the NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti or the NVIDIA RTX 2070, Radeon Pro 5500M in the MacBook Pro, or the RX 5070, the RX Vega 56, you get the point. These are dedicated GPUs. Now, the difference is the CPU will feed information to the dedicated GPU to then handle the graphical processing, which gets displayed on your screen and also processes things within 3D modeling programs. And so when it comes to Autodesk, it's going to use a lot of heavy graphics processing, and that's why I recommend getting a laptop with a dedicated GPU. Now, let's look at two laptops here with integrated versus dedicated GPU. First and foremost, we have the Acer Swift 3. This laptop, it comes in at around $673, has the AMD Ryzen 7 4700U, and comes with the AMD 7 graphics. Now, this is a great laptop for Photoshop and for some light video editing, but this would not be a suitable laptop for Autodesk because it just doesn't have the power you need to run the program efficiently. Versus the Acer Nitro 5, for an extra $100, is a great entry-level Autodesk laptop. It has the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650. It has a Ryzen 5 4600H. Good setup. Now you might say, but this one has the Ryzen 7 and this one has the Ryzen 5. Well, if you look right here, you have the H classification, making this a more powerful processor than the U classification. If you want to learn more about that, I have videos on my channel explaining the differences between processors, and you can dive into that. But for brevity's sake, we'll just keep moving forward. So like I mentioned earlier, I said we'd look at the charts. So here is the Autodesk 3ds Max chart of the Acer Swift 3 versus the Acer Nitro 5. As you see, the Acer Nitro 5 has a 3 times better score than the Acer Swift 3, and that is largely due to the dedicated GPU. It heavily uses it. And so as you see, you're going to get way more performance out of Autodesk 3ds Max and even more out of Autodesk Maya. It's more than 3 times the benchmark score here. And remember, with this score, higher is better. So right off the bat, you can see that you want to avoid the integrated GPUs and get the dedicated. All right, let's jump into my recommendations. First and foremost, kicking it off at the Acer Nitro 5. This is going to be the start of the category, and you're going to get around a $769 laptop with 6 cores and 12 threads with the Ryzen 5 4600H, the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650, 8 gigs of RAM, and 512 gig solid state drive. Now, I would recommend boosting this up to 16 gigs of RAM as your budget allows. It's going to give you more performance in the programs, but it's a great kickoff point for Autodesk. Now, one thing that's unfortunate about this laptop, I'm not sure how you care about color accuracy within Autodesk, but it does have a low color gamut range. Next up is the IdeaPad from Lenovo. This is the Gaming 3. This laptop's a little bit more expensive. It comes with the i5 10300H with 4 cores and 8 threads, GTX 1650, 8 gigs of RAM, and 256 gig solid state drive. Again, lower color accuracy, but still a great kickoff point for Autodesk. I again would upgrade this laptop to 16 gigs of RAM as your budget allows. Next up is the MSI GF75, the first 17-inch laptop on our lineup. This is a great laptop if you're wanting a little bit more visual space for your designs. It's about $849 at the i5-10300H. GTX 1650, 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gig solid state drive, 17.3-inch Full HD display, and this one, if you want some color accuracy, is a great price point for about 89% sRGB and 50% Adobe RGB. Definitely an improvement of color accuracy, not the most amazing color accuracy, but working its way up there and for a great price point. Next up is the Lenovo Legion models. We have a variety of specs that you could choose from. Legion 5 with the Ryzen 5 4600H, the Legion Y540 with the i7-9750H, and we have the Legion 5 with the Ryzen 7 4800H. All of these units come with the same screen depending on the hertz that you choose. So do note that the screen of the unit I reviewed is the 120 Hz display. It had a 62% sRGB and a 46% Adobe RGB. I also recently reviewed the 144 Hz screen, which gets 99% sRGB. So really be thoughtful when you purchase this laptop. There are so many variations. It's one thing I'm really not fond of that some laptop providers do. They create one laptop in like multiple variations and price points, which is great for the buyer as far as the price is concerned, but it can get very confusing as far as the components and performance you're going to get. So do your due diligence. I'll try and list a handful of different models below with a little bit of description so you know what you're getting, but really do your due diligence even with the ones that I recommend, because you don't want to get what you don't want. You want to get the right pick. All right, let's keep moving forward here. Next up on the list is the HP Pavilion Gaming laptop, okay? This laptop is about $1,049 estimated price. Come with the i5-10300H with the GTX 1660 Ti, or you can get the i7-10750H with the GTX 1660 Ti Max Q. Both of these laptops come with 16 gigs of RAM, so the choice is yours on the 6 cores or 12 threads or the 4 cores or 8 threads. For the price, the extra $100, I would go for the i7. That's just my personal feel. One of my favorite laptops currently that I've reviewed, the HP Omen, is stacked with performance and build quality. It has an aluminum top cover. And so that just gives it a little extra level of build quality, especially at the $1,299 price point. Not a bad buy for a Ryzen 7 4800H that runs cool and performs in excellent benchmarks in Autodesk. It comes with the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1660 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig SSD. This laptop does have a 97% sRGB and 71% Adobe RGB in the 144 Hz screen variant. A great pick on this one. Next up is the MSI Creator 15M. This laptop comes with the i7-10750H with 6 cores and 12 threads, the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060, 32 gigs of RAM, and 1 terabyte of SSD. This laptop is absolutely stacked and at a great price point. So you're going to get 32 gigs of RAM, you're going to get an RTX GPU, which is on the upper tier of performance. It's not like, you know, the 2080 or anything like that, but it performs very well. So this is a really good buy. I would personally consider this one or even the next one, which is one of my favorites. This one also comes with a color gamut range of 100% sRGB and 71% Adobe RGB. Next up on the list is the Asus Zephyrus G14. This is an all-aluminum 14-inch laptop. This is a great on-the-go laptop for Autodesk Maya or Autodesk 3ds Max. It's going to come in at around $1,700 with the AMD Ryzen 9 4900HS, the RTX 2060 Max Q, and 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM and a 512 gig SSD. Now, this color gamut range is 91% sRGB and 60% Adobe RGB. So, once again, great buys as we're moving up the level. Obviously, they're getting more expensive, but this is going to be kind of your prime price point if you're looking for a mid-range laptop, anywhere from that like $1,300 to around $1,600 price point, and then from there we move up to more expensive machines. All right, next up on the list, this is the Gigabyte Aero 15. I have recently done a full review on this laptop. And actually, like I said, most laptops in this lineup have full reviews on my channel. So if you see one and you're like, oh man, I want to learn more about that laptop, you can watch full reviews that I've done over on my channel. I'll link a few up in the YouTube cards above as we're working through this video. And so you can check those out once this video is complete and you get a good feel of all the options that you have for Autodesk laptops. All right, but jumping back to the Gigabyte Aero 15, this laptop comes comes in two variations, the base model and the performance edition. Both great. Obviously, you're going to get a lot more performance out of the performance edition, but the base model is still awesome. It comes with 6 cores, 12 threads in the i7-10750 versus the performance edition with 8 cores and 16 threads out of the i9-10980HK. The base model comes with the RTX 2060, whereas the performance model comes with the RTX 2080 Supermax Q. Base model 16 gigs of RAM, performance model 32 gigs, but they both are Pantone color validated at 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB. One's 4K, one's full HD. So make the choice. Definitely a big price difference, but if you need a bunch of performance, you're not going to go wrong with that Gigabyte Performance Edition. Next up is the Acer Predator Helios 300. This has been one of my best-selling laptops on the channel for over 2 years now. It's just got a great price to performance comparison. So for about $1,700, you can get the i7-10750H, the the GeForce RTX 2060 GPU, 32 gigs of RAM, and a solid color gamut range at 97% sRGB and 77% Adobe RGB. Can't go wrong with this one. Like I said, though, I'll say that a lot during this review because I've only picked laptops that I totally would buy. I would buy all these laptops. I would not buy these laptops. So, you can't be like, oh, Ben, would you buy this one? Yeah, that's why it's on the list. I really believe in the ones that I have listed here. I know there's a handful of them, but there are different price points and they have different performance levels. And we'll see that in the benchmarks here coming up in just a minute. Next up is the Asus ROG Strix G17. This is another one of my favorite price to performance comparisons. It's a 17-inch laptop, comes with the i7-10750H with the GeForce RTX 2070 with 8 gigs of GDDR6 VRAM. Beast of a laptop, coming with 32 gigs of RAM, 2 terabyte SSD, 17.3-inch Full HD screen, and 98% sRGB and 75% Adobe RGB. Like I said, a great price to performance laptop here, especially for the 17-inch model. Next up on the list, we have the MSI WF75. Now for this laptop, you're going to see a slightly different setup here, okay? So you're going to see the i7-10750H, which you just saw in the Asus ROG Strix G17, but you're going to see this NVIDIA Quadro RTX 3000. Now, these are intended for workstation computers. So you're going to see a lot more of these in more of the workstation setups, more towards creative professionals, because they've been optimized to run for creative professionals versus something like the GeForce Edition. So you have Quadro right here versus GeForce right here. So this is gaming. These are originally built for gaming, but they work very well for creative professionals. So they built these Quadros to be more for workstations. Now, however, for Autodesk, you'll see that this does not make the hugest difference. Now, we're going to get into an RTX 5000, which has 16 gigs of VRAM, I think. So that is going to make a big difference because it's just a massive amount of VRAM versus this 6 gig. But for Autodesk, don't be fooled. These are still going to fall in the middle of the chart, and you're actually going to see more performance out of something like a 2070 or 2080 with this 8 gigs versus this Quadro RTX 3000 with the 6 gigs. So don't be fooled by the branding or marketing. In this situation, you're still going to get a lot of benefit out of this GPU, and you'll see that in the benchmark text in the future. But I just wanted to show you that right here, right now, and talk through that. All right, so looking at the MSI WF75, we have 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD, 17.3-inch Full HD display, and 98% sRGB and 75% Adobe RGB. Next up is the Asus ProArt StudioBook Pro 17, a great laptop. Basically, this is the fraternal twin of the ROG Strix G17. It's just a little bit thinner and lighter, and it has the RTX 3000 GPU versus the GeForce RTX 2070. This does have 64 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD, 17.3-inch display, and 100% sRGB, 89% Adobe RGB, and 100% DCI-P3. Next up is the Acer ConceptD 7 Pro. Again, another great laptop with the Quadro RTX 3000. Comes with the i7-9750H. 1 terabyte of SSD, 32 gigs of RAM, a 4K display with 100% sRGB, 100% Adobe RGB, and 100% DCI-P3, all Pantone validated. Next up is the Apple MacBook Pro. Now, I've included the upgraded version with the i9-9880H, the Radeon Pro 5500M with 8 gigs of VRAM. I think that's important if you're going to be getting this laptop for Autodesk. You want to make sure you got enough VRAM, 32 gigs of your standard RAM, 1 terabyte, and a 16-inch Full HD display that is 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB. So I went with the upgraded edition because I really believe that you're going to get better performance out of this laptop by doing so. Next up is the Asus ProArt StudioBook Pro 15. This is the 15-inch version of that 17-inch model. You're going to see the i7-9750H, and then this is what I was talking about. Here's that Quadro RTX 5000 with 16 gigs of VRAM. This is a beast of a laptop. This would probably fall into one of my top picks. It's very expensive. It's $3,900, but it is a beast. It has the most VRAM. It has some of the most regular RAM, and it has a solid processor. Now, it has 2 terabytes of SSD, a 15.6-inch Full HD display, and 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB. So you can't go wrong. This is a great pick. Next up is the Razer Blade Studio Edition and Razer Blade Advanced. So you have 2 laptops with very similar spec outs, except you're going to see the biggest difference is going to be in these GPUs. You have the RTX 2080 Supermax Q versus the Quadro RTX 5000. That's the same GPU that's in the ProArt StudioBook Pro 15, so it's going to have that beast VRAM. Also have 16 gigs versus 32, a full HD screen versus a 4K, and they both have great color accuracy. All right, so let's get into these benchmarks. Here's what I was talking about. So right here we have the Gigabyte Aero 17 HDR. This has the RTX 2070 Supermax Q. And then right below it, we have another laptop, the Asus ROG Strix G17, which I said was one of my favorite laptops in this lineup for price to performance comparison. And that's going to also be an RTX 2070 GPU. Moving on the line, you see that right here is that Quadro RTX 3000 GPU. So it's making roughly middle of the charts, but it's not killing it comparatively to those 8 gigs of VRAM GPUs. All right, moving down the line here, we have the Acer Nitro, and that is the GTX 1650 with 4 gigs of VRAM. So you can see when you half the VRAM, you lose about half the performance. And then from here, you have the integrated GPU, which is what I'm not recommending, and that's way down the line with a score of 33 in Autodesk 3ds Max. All right, looking at Autodesk Maya, you see that the Gigabyte 17 HDR absolutely kills it. This one is included in the description below. I didn't bring it in the Gigabyte lineup because it's just the 17-inch expression, and that's the one that I've recently reviewed. So you can definitely pick this one up in the description below as well, and that falls under the Gigabyte category. And then second place is the Asus ROG Strix G17, followed by the Acer Predator Helios 300. And then as you get down here, here's again that Quadro series. So like I said, the Quadro, yeah, it's built for workstations. It can be very good, but compared head to head with an 8 gig VRAM GPU versus a 6 gig VRAM GPU, you can see the performance wins out here. I really want to get one of those RTX 5000s in the studio to see like if this score becomes like a 400 or something crazy. But unfortunately, I have not been able to do that yet. But that is probably one of your best picks, is checking out that RTX 5000 if you are somebody who can go for that kind of price point. All right, moving forward, we have the intense workload stabilized thermal temperatures. So these are the temperatures that we've seen as the computer stabilizes. So the computer ramps up, gets really hot, the fans kick on, and then it stabilizes the temperatures. So during heavy workloads, we see that there's a big benefit in choosing that RTX 3000 in the Asus ProArt StudioBook. It's able to stay very cool. It's got a great cooling system, but also the Gigabyte Aero's got a good cooling system. HP Omen, the Asus Strix G17 also cools very well. But then as you get up towards the Asus Zephyrus G14, it's getting pretty hot, getting up almost to 90 degrees Celsius, and that's where you start to see some pretty warm temperatures, and especially during the higher ones, you're seeing that one get up to around, I was seeing about 96 to 98 degrees Celsius during the high temps, and these are the stabilized. All right, in the Cinebench R20, we see the Ryzen processors really winning out here with the Ryzen 7 4800H inside the HP Omen taking the top spot, followed by the Ryzen 9, and then another Ryzen 7 4800H, and then the Gigabyte Aero 17 i7-10875H coming in about 5th place, and then moving down the line, you see the rest of the processors from there. All right, next up we have the Geekbench single core scores. That i7-10875H is a great processor that was found in the Razer Blade 15 as well. So you can't go wrong with that processor, topping out those Geekbench single core scores. And then you have some of the other i7 Intel processors making their way through, and then you're finding about the middle of the benchmark test here, you're seeing the Ryzen processors. They're not better, so the Intel is going to be better in single core performance currently, and Ryzen's going to really kill it in multi-core performance, as you see right here. So we have the Ryzen processor sitting up on the top end, followed closely behind by the i7-10875H. If you're curious about the exact prices and availability of any of these laptops, you can head down in the description below and click those links. Now, if you do make a purchase of those links, we'll get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you, and that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. Click over to the screen over here if you want to look at more in-depth reviews of any of these laptops. If you said, hey, okay, I really like that one, I want to learn more about it, check it out over here. I'm Benji Kaiser. Keep editing, keep creating, keep designing. I'll see you here in the next video.